Hi, I'm Stuart. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about 40 physical books I want to read in 2024. I own all of the books. I want to read down my physical TBR. In a previous video, I talked about some no spend goals I established for part of 2024, books being primary amongst them. Basically, I want to minimize my book buying for a good part of 2024. Realistically, I know I'm going to buy some books because I do enjoy buying them. Before I start talking about the list of 40 books, I just want to point out that I recently got my hair fully dyed teal. Previously it was tinted teal, but this is the first time it's been fully dyed, and I really like it. The first book on my list is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. In 2022, I read her YA debut, I Kissed Shara Wheeler, and I loved it. It was one of our top books of the year. I rated it 5 stars. So I picked up this book and her other book also. I look forward to reading her adult novels. My second book is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. It's a prequel to the Hunger Games series. Back when the original books came out in the movies, I read the first 2 books and watched the first 2 movies. I think probably in book, movie. Then they divided the third book into 2 movies. I read the first half of the third book, but I never saw the third movie. So I'm going to go back and from the beginning read the third book in the Hunger Games series. I have it as an ebook. And then I'm going to read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Late last year they released the movie to it. Got kind of mixed reviews. I'll probably see it, but I always want to read the book first. The number 3 book is Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. I don't really know that much about this book. And the synopsis on the back, which is very short, it says, "This is the story of how my best friend disappeared, how nobody noticed she was gone except me, and how nobody cared until they found her, 1 year later." So it sounds interesting, intense, but I think it'll be an interesting read. The third book is The Book Haters Book Club by Gretchen Anthony. Just by the title, the book kind of demanded me to read it. The number 5 book is All of Our Demise by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. It's the sequel to the All of Us Villains book, which I previously read. In that book, there's, I believe, 7 families who can control magic. And every 20 years, there's a contest where a representative of each family takes part to the death, all of our Hunger Games. The one who wins, their family, has the magical power for the next 20 years. It's an apt title because unlike the Hunger Games, when some are heroic, these are all really villains. I enjoyed the first, and I look forward to reading the second. The 6th book is Me and White Supremacy. Combat Racism, Change the World, and Become a Good Ancestor by Lyla F. Saad. I want to try to read more books like this to become more informed about the reality of a lot of people's situation and why we are where we are. And I know these books can be kind of painful to read, but I think it is good to be informed. The 7th book is The Binding by Bridget Collins. A friend of mine got me this book a few years back, and I've never read it, and I want to read it now. I don't really know anything about it, but she has great taste, so I know it'll be good. The 8th book on my list is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Michelle Zauner is the leader of a popular indie band called Japanese Breakfast. This book is a memoir kind of about her relationship with her mother, who unfortunately died young. I've had it for a while, and I really look forward to getting around to finally reading it. It's critically acclaimed. The 9th book is Geekerella by Ashlye Poston. I don't actually remember getting this book. I just came across it recently when I was searching through stuff. It's a Cinderella retelling with the main character being a geek, and that premise is something that really appeals to me, so I think I'm going to love this book. The 10th book on my list is New World Coming, Frontline Voices on Pandemics, Uprisings, and Climate Crisis, edited by Alastair, Bitsoi, and Brooke, Larsen. This is another book where I want to try to be more informed about stuff, so Look forward to reading it. A little trepidation too, because I think some of these books are going to reveal stuff that I might be upset at knowing, but I do think it's better to be informed. The reality of them, not necessarily the things that we get told. The 11th book on my list is Of Time and Turtles, Mending the World Shell by Shattered Shell by Saad Montgomery. This is a nature book, and I've recently read a fair amount of nature books, and I do enjoy them. It's interesting to learn about the lives of creatures we tend to take for granted and maybe don't even think about. The 12th book on my list is The 100 Years' War on Palestine, A History of Settler Colonialism and Resistance, 1917 to 2017, by Rashid Khalidi. Got this book because I want to learn the real story about what's happened in Palestine, not necessarily the story that's been told by the media and the government for years. I know it's going to be a painful read, but I want to learn what led to where we are now. The 13th book on my list is Except for Palestine, The Limit of Progressive Politics by Mark Lamont Hill and Mitchell Plitnick. This is kind of a companion to the previous book I mentioned. This will kind of be difficult for me because as a longtime Democrat, I'm going to have to confront some disturbing facts about the party that I've supported for a while. But like the previous book, I think it's better to be informed. I'm going to read this book closely after I read the previous one. The 14th book on my list is The Cheerleaders by Kara Thomas. I don't really remember why I bought this book. I believe it's a YA novel, but I think it'll be an interesting read. The 15th book is All You Can Ever Know by Nicole Chung. The author was adopted into an American family, and it talks about her relationship with them. And it also talks about her searching for her biological roots. I look forward to reading it. The 16th book is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I saw a lot of booktubers talk about this book, mostly positive, so when I saw it in a recent visit at Barnes & Noble, I picked it up. The sequel to it recently came out. If I like this book, I'll probably pick up the sequel and read it too. The 17th book on my list is Malice by Heather Walter. It's a sapphic retelling of the Sleeping Beauty story. During a recent visit to Barnes & Noble, they had a card below this book where an employee recommended it, and that got me looking at it. I did think long and hard about it though, because this book was a little damaged, and I normally wouldn't buy a damaged book. But instead of ordering online, I figured I would buy it at the store because I got the recommendation from an employee at that store. I think this is going to be a fun one. I look forward to reading it. The 18th book on my list is The Feeling of Falling in Love by Mason Deaver, another book I picked up at Barnes & Noble. I can't really recall why I picked this up or what the book's about, but I think it's a romance, so it should be a fun read. The 19th book on my list is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is a huge book. If it's not the most popular book of 2023, it's pretty close. I watched a lot of reviews by booktubers on this. Some loved it, some not so much. Wasn't even going to read it. Then I reserved it on Libby, but it was taking a long time, and I saw there was a special edition, so I canceled the Libby hold and I bought this book. I kind of know some of what goes on because of all the booktubers talking about it. I didn't avoid spoilers, but I still look forward to reading it. There is already a sequel to this book, which is maybe going to be the most popular book of 2024. But I didn't put these books in order on these 40 books, but this is going to be the first one I read because I want to not wait any longer before I read it. Because I've already learned more than I like to about this book, and I'd prefer not to learn any more before I read it. The 20th book on my list is Tegan and Sarah, Junior High, by Tegan Quinn and Sarah Quinn and Tilly Walden. Tegan and Sarah are identical twin sisters. They're in a band called Tegan and Sarah. In the late aughts and early 2010s, I got some of their music, and I saw them a couple times in concert. I did like them, but I kind of lost track of what they were doing. Then I saw they were doing a virtual event about this book, so I bought a ticket. The book came with it. It's a graphic novel, and I look forward to reading it. My 21st book is The Half of It by Madison Beer. This is a memoir. And in fact, I didn't mention the other books, but some of them are signed too. But this book is a signed edition. I've been a fan of her music for a while. So when she came out with a memoir, I, of course, got a copy. I know some people would say she's too young to have a memoir. I would disagree. She's had a lot of experience in her life, some good and some bad. Fortunately, her career seems to be on an upswing right now. The memoir is small. I look forward to reading this book. My 22nd book is Girls Like Girls by Hayley Kiyoko. Like Madison Beer, I've liked Hayley Kiyoko for a while now, actually longer than Madison Beer. I first liked her when I saw the movie Lemonade Mouth, which was a Disney Channel movie that I believe came out in 2012. Then I saw that she released music, so I bought it. I bought some merchandise, and I continue to listen to her music. Her career is on the upswing. This book is based upon her most famous song, Girls Like Girls, and when I saw this book was going to come out, I of course had to have it. I have seen mixed reviews on BookTube about this book, and some of the negative reviews were by fans, so that concerns me. But I still look forward to reading it and giving it a fair shake. The 23rd book on my list is The Soul of an Octopus, a surprising exploration to the wonder of consciousness by Saad Montgomery. This is the second Saad Montgomery book on my list. Octopuses are actually quite intelligent, so look forward to reading an in-depth analysis of them and their habits. The 24th book on my list is Nick Blake and the Remarkables, A Manifest Prophecy by Angie Thomas. I believe she normally writes YA books, and this is a middle grade book. I look forward to reading this. It looks like it'll be a fun one. This is another book that I got autographed. The 25th book on my list is Fear Street, The Beginning by R.L. Stine. I've recently been reading a series of R.L. Stine's Goosebumps series, which is his middle grade series. So I was interested in reading a book that was geared toward teens. So I picked up this book, which is the beginning of the Fear Street series. And I really look forward to seeing how his writing translates to teens. My 26th book is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. And this book is another one that is autographed. I previously read about half this book, and I put it down and didn't pick it up. Not because I didn't like it, but that's what I do sometimes. I just I'll pick up another book and read it, and sometimes books get lost in the shuffle. So I'm going to read this book from the beginning. I already have the second book. I was gifted it. And so, of course, I'll read that after I've done reading this. I'm not sure how many there are in this series, perhaps 3 or 4, but eventually I'll get around to reading all of them. I look forward to reading this again. Well, the half I read already and then finishing it. The 27th book on my list is I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. Alice Oseman is most known for her Heartstopper series. I have read the first Heartstopper book, and I do plan to read them all. I think I bought this book before I bought the first Heartstopper book, but I'm not positive about that. I don't really know much about this book. If anything, I can tell a little bit by the cover. But I look forward to reading a novel from her. The Heartstopper books are graphic novels. The 28th book on my list is Big Bad by Lily Anderson. This is a book from the Buffy the Vampire Slayer universe. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was probably my favorite series of all time, so I still pick up books from that universe on occasion. Don't really know what this book's about, but I've never read anything set in the universe I didn't like, so I look forward to reading this book. The 29th book on my list is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a book of her poetry. I'm not especially knowledgeable about poetry. I have read some of it, but I would like to read some more again. I think to really enjoy poetry, you need to read things more than once. I tend to just read it once, but maybe I can change that with this book. The 30th book on my list is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I previously mentioned an Angie Thomas middle grade book. This is a YA book. This book is amongst the most banned and challenged books, and in the future I want to make a better effort to try to read more banned and challenged books. At this time, I don't particularly pursue them. It just happens to be that some of the books I pick up turn out to be banned and challenged. But in the future, I want to make a better effort to read those books and support the authors and companies, because I'm against the book bannings that are going on right now in the U.S. The 31st book on my list is Extraordinary Villain Story by V.E. Schwab, Enid Balaam, and Jordi Esquin-Lorich. This is another book that is, in fact, an autograph book. This is a graphic novel. I don't really know anything about the story, but I have read a few books by V.E. Schwab before. Middle grade books. I haven't read YA, or if she has any adult books, I'm not sure, but I look forward to reading this. The 32nd book on my list is Empire the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. It is another book that is autographed. I don't really know anything about it, but the cover is very cool, and this kind of thing is like pictures is really cool. So I'm sure I'm going to enjoy the book. Interestingly, V.E. Schwab, who I talked about for the previous book, actually gave a little blurb for this book. So that's kind of interesting. My 33rd book is The Outsiders, 50th Anniversary Edition by S.E. Hinton. This is another book that is autographed. I read this book decades ago, and I just wanted to revisit it. It's not a particularly long book. I think that this is the type of book that is somewhat timeless. I think it would appeal to every new generation of teenagers, and I look forward to reading it again. The 34th book on my list is Frostbite by Rochelle Mead, which is book 2 in the Vampire Academy series. A few years back, a close friend of mine gave me the first book in the series, and I did enjoy it, so I look forward to reading the second book. The 35th book on my list is The Watchmaker by B.L. Blocher. This is an interesting book to me because the author is a childhood classmate and neighbor of mine, so when I learned that he'd written a series of books, I bought them. I've yet to read them, but I look forward to reading them and seeing what his writing's all about. The 36th book on my list is Razzle Dazzle, also by B.L. Blocher. So again, I look forward to reading this book because it's written by somebody I've known for a long time. The 37th book on my list is Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon. And this is also a autographed book. I did read some of her previous book, Everything, Everything, and I do need to get back and finish it because I enjoyed what I read. I look forward to reading this book based upon my experience with her previous book. The 38th book on my list is Bleeding Earth by Caitlin Ward. The blurb on the front of it describes it as dark, gory, and impossible to put down, a worthy addition to the horror genre by Gretchen McNeil, author of 10 and the Don't Get Mad series. The cover in that blurb makes me really want to read this book. I can't remember picking it up, but I can see why I did. The 39th book on my list is 13 Reasons Why, 10th Anniversary Edition by Jay Asher. I realize that this book is controversial and that the Netflix series based upon it is also controversial, but I do have the book and I do look forward to reading it. The 40th book on my list is Women Love Wrestling, an anthology on women of professional wrestling, edited by Jason Norris. Described on the back, it says that 99% of professional wrestling books are written by men about male performers in a male-dominated business. This book aims to help correct the balance, giving a voice to women and fans of women wrestling, so women in the ring are just as captivating to watch, and the female fans are just as passionate. I'm a big-time fan of professional wrestling. I'm especially a big-time fan of women's professional wrestling, so I'm really looking forward to seeing the perspectives that this book is going to give me. I will say that this book came out, This book came out in 2020, and that since then, women's wrestling does continue to be on the rise. I do think that it's in the best shape it's ever been and the most popular it's ever been, but it still has a way to go. It's like with women in any profession, really, there still is a way to go before they reach equality. I look forward to reading this book to read the perspective it's going to give me. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I plan to upload videos about once a week, mostly talking about books, but I also include other interests of mine on occasion. I hope you have a wonderful day.